How many times have you felt your inner world crumble, your self-worth shattered by a careless word, a dismissive glance, or the simple, gnawing feeling of not measuring up to someone else's expectations? We chase validation like shadows, believing our value is reflected in the eyes of others. But what if this relentless pursuit is precisely what leaves us vulnerable, perpetually on the brink of psychological collapse? Carl Jung, the profound Swiss psychiatrist, offered a radical, almost dangerous insight. The true peril isn't in what others say or do, but in the fragile foundation of our own self-regard. He argued that our dependence on external affirmation is a psychic addiction, a desperate craving for the next like, the next compliment, the next nod of approval. Jung warned us decades ago that as long as our sense of worth is tethered to the fluctuating opinions of the world, we are condemned to an existence of perpetual insecurity. This video will unveil a Jungian path to self-love so robust, so deeply rooted, that no external force can ever dismantle it. Prepare to discover the profound process Jung termed individuation, a journey that promises to liberate you from the ceaseless mendicancy for validation. It's a path that, once embarked upon, will irrevocably transform your understanding of self-worth, revealing an inner resilience you never knew you possessed. You intuitively know why your self-esteem feels so precarious, so easily swayed. Jung articulated this with brutal clarity. You live identified with your persona, that social mask you meticulously crafted to navigate the world and gain acceptance. This persona, while necessary for social interaction, is also your Achilles heel. It is not your authentic self. It is merely an artificial construct, a carefully curated facade. And herein lies the trap. Because it is not genuinely you, any criticism, any rejection, any perceived failure can effortlessly shatter it. The profound, unbreakable self-love Jung envisioned doesn't originate from this superficial layer. It springs from something far more fundamental. Your essential self, that immutable core of your being that exists beyond all masks, beyond all roles. Let me be direct. If your sense of self-worth is contingent on the number of likes your latest post receives, on whether your partner consistently validates you, or if your employer acknowledges your efforts, then what you possess is not true self-love. It is, in Jungian terms, a form of emotional dependency, a constant outward projection of your inner need for affirmation. This dependency, this relentless seeking of external validation, is precisely what keeps you perpetually vulnerable, anxious, and forever chasing approval. Jung referred to this phenomenon as projection. You deposit your inherent value onto the external world because you have not yet dared to explore and integrate the boundless value residing within your own psyche. This outward focus, this identification with the persona, is the root of the problem, leaving your true self unacknowledged and your inner strength untapped. The first, often brutal step Jung proposes on this journey to authentic self-love is the confrontation and integration of your shadow. What is the shadow? It is that hidden, often repressed part of your psyche, those aspects of yourself you reject, deny, or pretend don't exist. Why is this confrontation so crucial? Because as long as you refuse to acknowledge and integrate your shadow, you will continue to project your unresolved insecurities onto others. You will remain in a state where you need others to tell you that you are valuable, precisely because, deep down, you do not genuinely believe it yourself. Jung understood that the shadow is not merely a repository of negative traits. It also contains your undeveloped potential, your dormant strengths, the raw, untamed energy that, once integrated, becomes a wellspring of personal power. Consider this. Every time you feel wounded by someone's rejection, what is truly happening? It is not the rejection itself that inflicts the deepest pain, but rather that it activates an internal wound, an unresolved insecurity that already existed within you. Jung taught us that others can only hurt us to the extent that they touch upon our own unintegrated complexes. If someone tells you that you are unintelligent and this comment devastates you, it is because, at some level, you already harbored doubts about your own intellect. The Jungian path to self-love is not a superficial affirmation in the mirror. It is a profound psychological excavation, a courageous journey inward where you confront every fear, every doubt, every insecurity, and consciously integrate them into your totality. It is about looking your shadow squarely in the eye and declaring, "You too are a part of me, and I accept you." When you embrace this process of integrating your shadow, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You cease to require others to fill your inner voids because you have begun to fill them yourself. You stop seeking in toxic relationships what can only be found within your own being. Jung eloquently stated, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And to awaken means to shed the illusion that your value is dependent on external factors. Let's consider relationships. Why do we often tolerate mistreatment, disdain, or indifference? Jung had a profound answer. Because unconsciously, we believe we deserve it. A weak sense of self-love, rooted in an unintegrated shadow, attracts relationships that mirror this very weakness. It acts like a psychological magnet. If, deep within your psyche, there is self-rejection, you will unconsciously draw people who reinforce that rejection. If there is an internal sense of abandonment, you will attract those who abandon. This is a fundamental psychological law Jung uncovered. The outer world invariably reflects the inner. But here lies the revolutionary insight. When you construct genuine self-love, grounded in a deep understanding of your own psyche, toxic relationships simply lose their magnetic pull. It's not that you consciously reject them. It's that energetically they no longer resonate with you. The individuals who once seemed irresistible now become transparent. You see their games, their manipulations, and you are simply no longer interested. The danger, then, is not merely suffering in these relationships, but remaining perpetually blind to the inner mechanisms that draw you to them, perpetuating a cycle of external validation seeking that keeps you from your true, integrated self. Jung spoke of the process of individuation as the ultimate path toward the self, that central psychic archetype that integrates all aspects of your personality, both conscious and unconscious. When you embark on this journey, self-love isn't something you build from scratch. It's something you discover. It has always been there, buried beneath layers of societal conditioning, personal trauma, and the false beliefs about who you are. This isn't a monolithic concept. Rather, it manifests in various patterns and stages, each revealing a different facet of your psychic landscape. The deepest secret Jung revealed about self-love is not about loving yourself despite your perceived flaws. It's about understanding that what you label as flaws are merely unintegrated aspects of your totality. That anger you repress, that selfishness you deny, that vulnerability you hide, all contain vital psychic energy. Once integrated, these aspects transform into immense personal power. This process of integration involves recognizing the nuanced ways your shadow manifests, perhaps as chronic self-sabotage, an inability to set boundaries, or a persistent need for external praise. Each of these patterns is a signal, a manifestation of an unacknowledged part of your psyche yearning for integration. Jung differentiated clearly between the superficial self-esteem that puffs itself up with external achievements and the profound, quiet knowing of the individuated self. The former is fragile, a compensatory mechanism for insecurity. The latter is an unshakable inner peace, a deep knowing of who you are without any need for external demonstration. Recognizing these distinct manifestations is crucial for navigating the complex terrain of the psyche and moving beyond superficial self-affirmation towards genuine self-acceptance. Imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you didn't need anyone's approval, if you could enter any room, meet anyone, face any situation with an unshakable certainty of your own intrinsic worth. This is not arrogance, Jung clearly differentiated. Arrogance is compensation for insecurity. Real self-love is quietude. It is peace. It is knowing who you are without the need to demonstrate. The dangers of neglecting this Jungian path to self-love are profound and pervasive, manifesting in various forms that undermine our psychological well-being and our capacity for genuine connection. Here are some specific dangers of failing to cultivate this deep, integrated self-love. Perpetual vulnerability to external opinion. Your emotional state becomes a pendulum, swinging wildly with every compliment or criticism, leaving you constantly at the mercy of others' perceptions. Chronic anxiety and insecurity. The constant need for validation creates a persistent underlying tension as you are always striving to meet external standards rather than living from your authentic core. Attraction to toxic relationships. As Jung observed, a weak inner foundation acts as a magnet for relationships that mirror and reinforce your unintegrated complexes, leading to cycles of mistreatment, abandonment, or manipulation. Self-sabotage and unfulfilled potential. Unacknowledged shadow aspects can manifest as self-defeating behaviors, preventing you from pursuing your true desires or realizing your inherent capabilities. Emotional dependency. Disguised as love. You mistake the desperate need for external approval for genuine connection, leading to relationships built on codependency rather than mutual respect and wholeness. Loss of authentic self. By constantly adapting your persona to fit external expectations, you gradually lose touch with your true self, leading to a sense of emptiness and a lack of inner direction. Inability to set healthy boundaries. The fear of abandonment or disapproval prevents you from establishing necessary limits, allowing others to deplete your energy and erode your self-respect. Internalized self-rejection. The unintegrated shadow fosters a deep-seated self-hatred or self-dislike, making it impossible to experience true inner peace or joy. The illusion of control. You mistakenly believe that by controlling how others perceive you, you can control your own worth, leading to exhausting efforts to maintain a perfect facade. Spiritual stagnation. The journey of individuation, which is intrinsically linked to self-love, is halted, preventing the full realization of your unique potential and purpose. These dangers highlight the critical importance of embarking on the inner work Jung prescribed, for without it, we remain adrift, vulnerable to the whims of the external world and disconnected from our own profound inner resources. The path to an unbreakable self-love, as illuminated by Jung, is not a quick fix, but a systematic process of profound psychological transformation. It begins with what Jung called confession, a brutal yet necessary admission to yourself of all the lies you've told, all the times you've betrayed your own values for acceptance, all the masks you've worn to fit in. This is often the most painful moment, but also the most liberating, for you can only transform what you first acknowledge. Following this confession comes illumination. You begin to see the patterns, why you repeatedly choose the same toxic relationships, why you sabotage your own success, why you seek validation in places where it can never truly be found. Jung taught us that these patterns are not random. They are manifestations of unresolved psychological complex. Each destructive pattern, each recurring struggle, is not a curse, but an opportunity for healing, provided you possess the courage to explore its depths. The third crucial step is education, learning new ways of relating to yourself. This is not mere theory, it is daily practice. It means establishing clear boundaries, saying no when you truly mean no, and consistently choosing authenticity over external approval. Each time you prioritize your inner truth over the comfort of others, you strengthen your self-love. It is like a psychological muscle that develops with consistent use and conscious effort. Finally, this leads to transformation. You reach a point where self-love is no longer something you practice. It is something you are. You no longer need to remind yourself of your worth. You know it in every cell of your being. The opinions of others become irrelevant, not out of indifference, but out of a profound inner fullness. When your inner cup is overflowing, you no longer need others to fill it. This systematic approach, rooted in self-awareness, confrontation, and conscious choice, is the Jungian blueprint for cultivating an enduring and unbreakable self-love. To truly grasp the power of this Jungian process, let's consider contrasting examples of what happens when this path is embraced versus when it is neglected. Think of a historical figure like Joan of Arc. Despite immense external pressure, condemnation, and the ultimate threat of death, Her conviction in her inner voice and her mission remained unshakable. While not explicitly a Jungian, her story exemplifies an individual deeply connected to an inner authority, a self that transcended external validation and fear. Her unwavering resolve, even in the face of overwhelming opposition, speaks to a profound inner integration that allowed her to stand firm against a world that sought to break her. She didn't seek approval. She embodied her truth, a testament to a self-love rooted in something far deeper than social acceptance. Conversely, consider the hypothetical individual. Let's call her Ilara, who lives her life perpetually seeking external validation. Ilara is brilliant, talented, and kind, yet she constantly doubts herself. She changes her opinions to match her friends, tolerates disrespectful behavior from partners for fear of being alone, and works tirelessly for recognition from her boss, even at the expense of her own well-being. Every minor criticism sends her into a spiral of self-doubt, and every compliment is a temporary bomb that quickly fades. Ilara's life is a constant performance, a desperate attempt to earn love and acceptance from the outside. Her self-worth is a fragile edifice built on the shifting sands of others' opinions, easily toppled by the slightest breeze of disapproval. She is a psychological child, constantly seeking parental approval in every relationship, never truly individuating. Her failure lies not in her capabilities, but in her inability to turn inward, to confront her shadow, and to build a self-love that originates from her own immutable core. These contrasting journeys vividly illustrate the profound difference between a life lived from a place of integrated self-love and one perpetually dependent on external validation. While the Jungian journey to self-love is fundamentally an internal one, the environment and the nature of our connections play a crucial, albeit often misunderstood, role. Jung understood that we are not isolated islands. Our psyche is deeply interwoven with the collective. The process of individuation, though personal, is significantly impacted by the relational field in which it unfolds. The crucial role of the environment lies in its capacity to either foster or hinder this internal work. Environments that encourage authenticity, self-reflection, and the acceptance of one's totality are invaluable. These are spaces where you feel safe enough to explore your shadow, to express your true feelings without fear of judgment, and to receive genuine mirroring that helps you see yourself more clearly. Conversely, environments steeped in judgment, superficiality, or constant demands for conformity can actively impede the process, forcing you back into the persona and away from the self. In terms of relationships, Jung's insights are particularly potent. When you begin to cultivate genuine self-love, your relational dynamics fundamentally shift. You cease to seek partners or friends to complete you, but rather to share from a place of wholeness. Jung observed that individuals with solid self-love tend to have deeper, more authentic relationships. Why? Because they don't need others to fill their voids. They relate from a place of fullness, not scarcity. They are not seeking half oranges, because they are already complete oranges themselves. This radically alters the relational dynamic. Instead of dependency, there is interdependence. Instead of need, there is conscious choice. To navigate these interactions effectively, here is a protocol or guide. Cultivate conscious awareness. Pay attention to how certain relationships make you feel. Do they energize you or drain you? Do they encourage your authenticity or demand conformity? Establish clear boundaries. As your self-love strengthens, you will naturally develop the capacity to set and maintain healthy boundaries. These are not walls, but selective membranes that allow in what is nourishing and keep out what is toxic. Seek reflective mirrors. Surround yourself with individuals who can offer honest, compassionate feedback, who see your potential, and who are also committed to their own inner work. These are the connections that truly support individuation. Practice psychological hygiene. Just as you maintain physical hygiene, regularly assess your relational landscape. Are there psychic vampires? Individuals who constantly drain your energy or undermine your self-worth? Recognizing and, if necessary, distancing yourself from them is an act of profound self-love. Embrace solitude. Paradoxically, the ability to be alone and feel complete is a cornerstone of healthy connection. Solitude for Jung was the laboratory of self-love, a space where you meet your true self without external distractions. Your relationship with yourself serves as the template for all your other relationships. If you betray yourself, you will attract betrayal. If you abandon yourself, you will attract abandonment. If you profoundly respect yourself, you will attract respect. This is the law of psychological projection at play. By consciously shaping your inner world, you inevitably transform your outer relational landscape, fostering connections that truly support your journey of individuation and self-love. The journey of building an unbreakable self-love, guided by Jungian principles, is not a linear progression, but a spiraling ascent, marked by distinct stages of transformation. As you commit to this inner work, you will experience a profound metamorphosis, not just in how you perceive yourself, but in how you engage with the world. The initial stage is often one of disillusionment and awakening. This is where the confession happens, where you confront the fragility of your persona and the exhaustion of living for external validation. It's a painful but necessary awakening to the fact that the old ways are no longer sustainable. You begin to see the patterns of self-betrayal and the psychic costs of neglecting your true self. This stage is characterized by a growing awareness of your shadow and the unconscious forces that have been driving your behavior. Next comes the stage of confrontation and integration. Here, you actively engage with your shadow. This involves looking squarely at those aspects of yourself you've rejected, your anger, your fear, your perceived flaws, and understanding their origins and their potential. It's about reclaiming the vital energy locked within these repressed parts. This stage requires immense courage, as it means dismantling long-held illusions about who you are and accepting your full, complex humanity, paradoxes, and all. As Jung noted, the totality includes the shadow. As integration deepens, you enter a stage of authentic self-expression and boundary setting. With a more integrated self, you naturally begin to express your truth more freely. The need to please others diminishes, replaced by a quiet confidence in your own worth. This manifests as the ability to set clear, firm boundaries, not out of aggression, but out of self-respect. You learn to say no without guilt and to protect your psychic space from draining influences. This is where the education from the previous block truly takes root as daily practice. The penultimate stage is inner sovereignty and relational wholeness. At this point, self-love is no longer an effort. It is an inherent state of being. You experience a profound sense of inner completeness, an unshakable knowing of your value that is independent of external circumstances. This inner sovereignty transforms your relationships. You attract connections based on mutual respect and shared growth, rather than need or dependency. You relate from a place of abundance, not scarcity, becoming a complete orange, rather than seeking a half orange. Finally, the journey culminates in ongoing individuation and purposeful living. Self-love, in the Jungian sense, is not a static destination, but a dynamic, lifelong process. You understand that new layers of the self will always emerge. New aspects of the shadow will present themselves for integration. This continuous process of deepening self-knowledge leads to a life lived with greater purpose, meaning, and authenticity. The transformation is not just for your benefit. It becomes a gift or a contribution to the collective, as your integrated presence naturally inspires and uplifts those around you. You become a beacon of what it means to live from the self, demonstrating that the revolution truly begins within. The journey of individuation and the cultivation of unbreakable self-love, while transformative, is not without its pitfalls and requires continuous maintenance. Jung was acutely aware that the psyche is a dynamic system, and vigilance is necessary to sustain the gains made. One of the most significant traps is narcissism. Jung clarified that narcissism is not self-love, but its very opposite. The narcissist constantly needs external admiration because, at their core, they despise themselves. True self-love, in contrast, is the total acceptance of one's humanity, with all its lights and shadows, without the need to appear perfect to anyone. The trap lies in mistaking the ego's inflated self-importance for the quiet confidence of the self. Maintenance here involves regular self-reflection to distinguish between genuine self-worth and compensatory grandiosity. Another insidious trap is comparison. Jung warned us that every time you compare yourself with others, you abandon your own path. Your process of individuation is unique and unrepeatable. You cannot measure your value by another's yardstick, because each psyche has its own structure, its own shadow, its own potential. The constant influx of curated images and narratives in modern society makes this trap particularly potent. Maintenance requires consciously disengaging from comparison, focusing instead on your own internal growth and journey. The fear of abandonment is a deep-seated trap that can derail the process, especially when it comes to setting boundaries. Jung traced this fear back to infantile experiences of helplessness. We unconsciously believe we need approval to survive, a pattern that repeats in adulthood. The irony is that allowing others to mistreat us out of fear of abandonment is, in fact, abandoning ourselves. The true abandonment comes not from outside, but from within. Maintenance involves recognizing this ancient fear and consciously choosing self-preservation over external approval. Guilt and self-condemnation are also potent poisons for self-love. Jung understood that carrying unresolved guilt is detrimental. However, Jungian forgiveness is not superficial. It requires understanding why you did what you did. What shadow aspect was at play? What complex dominated you? Only from this deep comprehension comes true self-forgiveness. Maintenance here involves engaging in active imagination, dialoguing with these inner parts, and integrating the lessons learned from past mistakes rather than perpetually punishing oneself. Finally, the illusion of a fixed destination is a trap. Self-love is not a static state you achieve and then forget. It is a dynamic, evolving process, a spiral where you are always deepening, always discovering new layers. Just when you believe you know yourself completely, a new aspect of your shadow or a new potential of yourself emerges for integration. This is not a failure, it is evolution. Maintenance involves embracing this impermanence, allowing your being to evolve, to die and be reborn constantly, without clinging to a fixed image of who you are. This continuous commitment to self-exploration and integration is the essence of maintaining an unbreakable self-love. We've journeyed deep into the Jungian psyche, exploring how to construct a self-love so profound that no external force can ever shatter it. We began by challenging the pervasive illusion that our worth is externally derived, revealing how Carl Jung exposed this dependency as a source of perpetual fragility. We've seen how the integration of the shadow, the dismantling of the persona, and the unwavering commitment to individuation are not merely psychological concepts, but the very bedrock of an unshakable inner life. Your vulnerability, your past hurts, your perceived flaws. These are not weaknesses to be hidden, but rather the raw material for your greatest strength, the very pathways to your authentic self. This is not a problem to be solved, but an advanced characteristic of your being waiting to be fully realized. Now, the question is not if you can build this unbreakable self-love, but if you are willing to do the profound inner work it demands. Are you ready to look your shadow in the eye, to integrate your rejected aspects, to establish firm boundaries, and to choose authenticity over fleeting approval? Are you prepared to undergo a psychological death, shedding the false ego, to be reborn as a more complete, integrated being? This is your moment of decision. You can continue to live with a fragile self-love, dependent on external factors, vulnerable to every passing wind. Or you can begin today the Jungian journey toward your center, toward that indestructible core of your being that no criticism can touch, no rejection can destroy. If this message has resonated deep within your soul, if you felt something profound stir within you, then you have a responsibility, not just to yourself, but to all those who are also seeking this path. Engage. Share your reflections in the comments below. What part of your shadow do you need to integrate? What boundaries are you ready to establish? What masks are you prepared to shed? Your vulnerability can be the catalyst for someone else's transformation. Grow with us. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and activate all notifications. Not because I need it, but because you need constant reminders of your own power, your own value, and your infinite capacity for transformation. Each video is an invitation to delve deeper, to know yourself more intimately, to love yourself more completely. Explore. Further. For a deeper dive into specific Jungian concepts mentioned today, check out our video on the archetypes of the collective unconscious, or understanding your persona. And remember this always. The self-love that no one can break is not a distant destination. It is a present decision. It is choosing right now to stop seeking in others what can only be found within you. It is deciding that your value is not for sale, that your essence is non-negotiable, that your complete being deserves unconditional love, starting with your own. Jung left us the map. The territory is yours to explore. The journey begins with a single step. Looking into the mirror and recognizing that behind all the masks, all the roles, all the stories, there is a being who has always been worthy of love. Your work is not to become worthy. It is to remember that you always were. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, remember, the most important love you will ever cultivate in your life is the love for yourself. Everything else is a consequence of that. The revolution begins within. Are you ready to start yours?